and welcome to our second ever dedicated Animal Crossing podcast. We are reporting to you live from our respective New Horizons islands.
Hello.
Hello, Chris.
Hello.
Chris Thurston.
Hi.
Also with me, Pip. What?
It is indeed you, Pip. And yeah, we are checking back in on a game that we've both played quite a lot of.
Do you know how much you've played?
I can check right now. Shall we start with me, because it's going to be the low ball. I have played 45 hours of Animal Crossing since it came out 2 weeks ago-ish, which feels like quite a lot. It's actually more than I've played Fire Emblem, which surprises me, because I feel like I've been playing that for years.
Oh, wow.
How much Animal Crossing have you played in 2 weeks, Pip?
Do you want to guess?
I'm going to guess 88 hours.
Interesting, because on my play activity it says that I've played for 125 hours or more.
It stopped counting.
So in a way, it is 88 hours or more. Just sort of more on the more.
Wow, that's 3 times as much as me.
I would say a few mitigating factors.
Your Honour.
Well, there's probably only one mitigating factor, but it's basically that a couple of times I have left the thing open, like while I've had dinner or something, so that friends could drop by and pick things up or drop things off.
Sure.
That does only really account for about 3 hours. So I don't think it mitigates me entirely.
Particularly because the Switch is quite keen to, particularly it's not connected to power, it's quite keen to go to sleep, which might presumably stop counting. So yeah, that's, even in those hours you were semi-regularly waggling the analog stick in order to stay awake.
Yeah, those are definitely some things that have happened. Anyway, do you want to tell me a bit about how your island has progressed since we last chatted?
Well, so I've been taking things as the count has established, taking things slightly more casually than some. So I've been letting it. I actually can't fully remember where exactly I was at with it when we last checked in. I've started now to sort of put some infrastructure projects into place. One thing about me that is important to know, and Animal Crossing is ultimately a creative game about realising your own vision for a little world full of animal people. Is one thing about me is that I tend to hold everything in a state of kind of unresolved, kind of chaotic creative suspense, and then resolve it very quickly into a final form from which it will never change. This is how I approach almost everything in my life. And so my island has been in a kind of that'll do, kind of muddle through state for a long time while I amass the resources I need to enact my kind of vision for the place, which is a kind of fire island, fire festival meets kind of slightly grotesque, boutique-y kind of Venice place. A place for, basically a place for fans of the internet's best dog, KK Slider, to show up and hang out. And I think the cast of characters on my island has kind of reflected that. I apparently have attracted solely people who look like they work in the music industry and are in rehab. Like,
who have you got?
I've got Klaus, a bear in a toga, who is German, but occasionally drops in the odd buongiorno.
He speaks French as well.
He does speak a little bit of French.
He welcomed me with a bienvenue.
A Mira, a kind of weary superhero rabbit who occasionally sort of gestures to a kind of what apparently is some kind of deadbeat history. Her party days.
I think you had her before.
Yeah, she was one of my initial ones. I've now gained Groff, who is I guess a cool goat. He's a cool green goat. And who again dresses like a music producer. I've got who else?
Is he the one that looks like a zombie?
You think that? I don't think that. I've also got Flurry, who is an adorable white hamster, who may be too pure for this island, which is, I think it's rapidly gaining a kind of startup vibe, that I wasn't necessarily intending, but is ultimately, in sync with my, mantra for the island, which is, fund bridges, get money.
What are you doing with these bridges? What's happening?
Well, my island has a sort of central mini island, which is sort of flanked on both sides by kind of long coastlines, but I've got quite a lot of water. And I've got an even smaller island in the middle of the island, which is currently being used as an orchard. And ultimately, I kind of want it to be quite well linked with several bridges, so you never have to go too far to get across to the other side of the island. Please excuse me, a balloon is flying past, and it's not an egg for once.
So are you trying to link your islands in for your island business?
Pretty much. I'm trying to...
Network.
Yeah.
Opportunity.
Oh, I've just seen what you've done there.
Thank you. Yes, I was wondering if you might.
I did. I've learned how to make a bamboo doll, which I already know how to do. So I can post that to you if you don't know how to make a bamboo doll.
Now you know that I do, because I've got a whole section of them.
That's true.
Made a whole video of
it. That's what they are.
Oh, yeah.
I forgot the creepy things. Basically, until about half an hour before we recorded this, things were going kind of in this, as I say, this sort of muddle through state where I hadn't really committed to anything. I moved my museum twice in order to relocate it, in order to create the perfect promenade alongside the Able sisters' tailor shop. So what have you caught there?
A sea bass.
A sea bass. And then I was just sort of muddling through, kind of waiting for the money to arrive. I went big on turnips this week. Spent 2,300 turnips and kept them in my egg room, which is a kind of hellscape in the back of my house where I've kind of embraced the egg event.
Chris, that's too many turnips.
It is too many turnips, and I was willing to kind of lose it all if I didn't bet big. But luckily, via a Discord that you are part of, you managed to find an island today where turnips were selling for 600 plus bells, which is a lot. Mm-hmm. And I've managed to turn that initial investment of about 250,000 bells into a cool 1.4 mil. So this is the VC I needed to get this project up and running, and that has allowed me to pay off my next loan on my house to expand, which I need the storage space because I've got so many rocks. And also fully fund this bridge. You can only fund one bridge at a time, so it's going to take me probably a week to build all the bridges I want. At which point I will have lost it all and not have any money left over for ramps. So that's how that's going.
I mean, sure. It's all go.
It is all go.
With you.
What else have I done? I've built a campsite area, a kind of cool beach chill-out zone that you need to access via a little bamboo forest. That's cool. And several little neighbourhoods spread around the island where the various animals can live. Other than that, I've been, to be honest, not been playing a huge amount every day, just enough to check in and gather my fruit, which is what I'm doing right now. Sell it off, raise capital, fund bridges, get money.
Do you think that maybe this isn't, because I can't imagine you getting super involved in the stock market in real life.
No.
So what is it about the stock market that has captured you?
It's ultimately relatively reliable, easy money. The good thing about Animal Crossing, many good things about it, but one of them is, and I think we'll probably return to this, it's not a survival game. There isn't a lot of scarcity. You're not going to starve to death or be abandoned by your animal friends if you fail to do certain things.
Especially not if you like eggs.
Not if you love eggs, boy. But what it does mean is, I think if you're willing to play the field a bit and make friends and be willing to connect to each other's islands, it now appears after the first week of the stock market that it is fairly reliably possible for you to find an island where they're selling quite well. I think everyone every week should be able to find at least a 400 plus, if not a 500 or 600 plus island with a bit of work and a bit of finagling the login system. Which means that it was a relative, I had the money to fund one bridge on Saturday, thanks to a fairly extensive water bug haul, which I sold to Flick for 75k. But I decided to invest in, and it's paid off. And what that has taught me as a person who's only ever really known late capitalism is that this will always work. And
no lessons need to be learned.
Yeah, this will always work, and it will always go up and not down, and up is the only good, and down is the only evil. So and the nice thing about Animal Crossing is that it might actually be literally true. So I'm living my, I guess, LA fantasy, and I encourage others to do the same. How's it going on in Pippington?
I mean, I don't believe in the stonk market.
Of course you don't.
What do you mean, of course I don't? What's that about?
No, go on.
No, I need to find out exactly how I'm being slighted.
You're going to buy exactly one turnip and let it decay for ants. That's what...
Yeah, I buy one turnip and then it becomes ant food, and that is how I live my life. Except somebody that I kind of know via Discord and whose island I visit every now and again, I think, had bad luck on the turnip roulette last week, and their turnips all rotted, and so I said that they could drop them off at mine for my ant area, and that they could have some money back. So I paid 10,000 bells for a lot of rotten turnips, and I have not been happier about that situation. That was a win for me. Like, as I always say, if you play the game of turnips, you get ants or you die or something. You win or you get ants, but ants is winning for me.
You can get flies as well.
You can. I got one this morning. I was delighted.
Yeah, I think it has exposed that, I didn't even... I was making so much money on them endless water bug spawns that I didn't even give one to planters.
What?
I know.
What?
I know. This is the worst I've felt about any decision I've made.
Oh my goodness. But, I mean, Blathers hates them, so, maybe you're the kinder of us two. But, my island is actually more all about the egg event. I'm very into the egg event now.
So I will say that this has been a journey that I've witnessed, because only a couple of days ago you were complaining that the sound of the wind outside made you think that perhaps a sky egg was coming and you couldn't handle it, and that you thought you were losing your mind. So what I would like to check... Oh, another balloon. What I would like to check is whether or not your embrace of the egg event is a kind of submission to the egg event, or if it's a discovery of its qualities.
I'm sorry, Benjamin just walked past with the cutest shopping basket, and I had to just watch it for a time.
Oh, a sky egg.
I mean...
See, that's the truth. Oh no, this is a recipe.
Well, so my stance on the eggs was not keen at first. I think for the reasons that a lot of people weren't keen on it. It was quite overbearing. It really overshadowed the cherry blossom event, which is also happening in the Northern Hemisphere islands. So for the cherry blossom stuff, you catch these little petals that just float around in the air, and it's all very non-intrusive and very just quite chill, and you can choose to interact with it or not. And then you've got this egg event where any resource that you could previously have got fairly reliably by whacking something with a big stick of some kind, or fishing it, suddenly had a chance to dispense egg instead. So you could fish for egg, you could hit rock for egg, you could shake tree for egg, you could pop balloon for egg. And there was a lot of egg. But then,
everything changed from the Egg Nation attack.
Well, it was more that because of all the balloons, so in Animal Crossing, normally, like, the thing with balloons is they just sometimes appear and float over your island, and if you see them and manage to shoot them down in an area where the present doesn't immediately fall into the sea or whatever, then you can get gifts, or you can get recipes for things, or you can get bells or resources or, whatever else. And so these balloons are coveted and they are useful. But with the egg event, suddenly there was just, it felt like there was, I don't know what the actual rate was, but there was a balloon every minute, and they make this whooshing sound that's quite sort of you get conditioned to want to.
Yeah, it's almost subliminal.
Seek it out and interact with it, and so I was doing that. And it was so disruptive because you'd be doing what you were actually meaning to do, and then out of the edge of hearing or whatever, on the cusp of hearing rather, you'd hear this whooshing sound, and then you'd go off and try and find what it was, and then you'd lose your bearings with something else, or whatever else. And it was for these eggs that beyond a certain point after you've crafted stuff don't really have much of a use. And so I started just shooting them down and leaving the eggs where they fell. And actually, that was the thing that rehabilitated the event to me. It was because now I've got eggs everywhere, except they're not everywhere. They're in places where I tended to be hanging about, because that's how I would hear the balloon. I wouldn't hear the balloon if it was somewhere that I didn't habitually go. And so now I've got these little clusters of blue sky eggs that are actually quite pretty. They're like these pastel coloured decorated things, and they mark out the areas of the island where I tend to hang out. And that's actually, for me, feels like a really lovely record of what I do and how I interact with the game and the time that I'm spending and where I'm spending it. And just, like the fact that there's a cluster outside my own home is really nice. And the fact that there's, a cluster on the far right of the island where there's a little peninsula where all my flowers are, or the flowers that I'm trying to breed are, there's, I don't know, I really like that. And I think other people started to notice it as they visited and seemed to really enjoy it as well, because there's just, it's like once you get to a certain point beyond just a handful of eggs, it becomes something else. It's not just, oh look, you've got some of those unsightly eggs, you've got trash around your house, basically. And now it's just, oh wow, this is kind of like become part of the landscape of your game. You've progressed beyond the egg event horizon. I think, but also I really liked how I've got a balloon, so I'll hold it to the microphone so you can hear the whooshing.
Well, that's just what these people want.
Yeah, then they'll be running for their, I don't know, does that sound?
I don't know, we might actually be able to successfully noise cancel that, just not from real life. Do you know what we probably can't noise cancel? Next door doing their 7-month DIY project. I do wish they would press A faster.
Yes, that's true. But anyway, so and I think at that point I also started viewing the egg event as kind of a dialogue between me and the developers. Like, somebody or a group of people on that team must have thought, this is the right cadence for this thing.
Yeah, this is enough eggs.
I have no insight as to whether this was what they were trying to do at all, or whether this was sort of entertaining to them, but I really liked the sense that perhaps this was about human beings who genuinely thought it was just really funny to make the town just full egg for a while.
Yeah.
And I find that kind of endearing. It's kind of in the same bracket for me as when the animals say something unexpected or like slightly knowing or weird, or something that points to a more, I guess, more human or wry, or I guess just something that isn't a bubblegum world, in the game.
Yeah, I get that.
But yeah, so someone also asked, I think Bean on Discord asked about the story for how I learned to love the egg, and that's essentially what happened. Is I found it weird enough, and then it crossed the volume, the sheer volume of egg just became hugely entertaining to me. And then so I made all the furniture, and I have a creepy egg bathroom where an anatomical model of a sort of human, so it's half human, half flayed human, is standing under a shower in a beautiful pastel egg themed room.
Nice.
With a stool you can sit on to watch the showering. So,
egg stuff.
Just normal egg stuff. Normal egg stuff. But speaking of the whole ability of other people to reach out and ask questions.
Indeed.
I really messed that segue up.
That concept.
So, yeah, I'm clearly not as good at multitasking as I would like to be. But what I was getting at, Chris, was we actually got quite a few good questions. So shall we...
Yes, do you want to fire them up and we can answer? Because that's a good way of structuring this return to the island.
So, we have a question from Twitter from Chris Higgins saying, which other religious holidays would you like to see Zipper T Rabbit completely ruin? And I would say Zipper has not ruined this for me because I'm having a great time. So I don't know. I'm making a bug net, by the way. That's what that is.
I'm talking to Tutu. She wants to give me a shell stool.
Interesting. I wonder whether, I don't know, we could go for something slightly outside
the question I have is, because obviously Zipper T Rabbit is an exhausted person inside a rabbit costume. I like to believe that they're just a smaller version of the same rabbit inside a rabbit costume, who is desperately energetic about Easter or Egg Day, but
while you're looking,
but if you run out of sight, is clearly exhausted by the whole thing. Which, as someone who's had to do kind of improv in that kind of setting in my life, I respect completely. So I don't know whether a different holiday would just be a different gig with a different costume, etc., or if it would be the same Zipper energy applied to a different observance. I think that's quite a crucial distinction. Also, as not a religious person, I don't really necessarily have a sense of what's fun to joke about.
Yes, I'm trying to think. I guess there's just various. I think every single day is a multiple saint day usually. So you could pick something or one relatively obscure or relatively local or with a very niche patronage and sort of see, I don't know who the patron saint of eggs actually is, but, we could go in that direction. But, something, in case people are interested and don't know the game, Animal Crossing tends not to be, it has all of these connections to mainstream adoptions of religious festivals. So there is an analogue of... So this is basically an Easter event, but it's all of the secular bits of Easter, really.
The chocolate eggs.
Yeah, the parts that aren't contingent on you having beliefs in Christian God or...
Zipper does not die and is reborn after 3 days or something like that.
No.
Although he does go away and come back again.
No one holds a vigil for Zipper T.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's also for Christmas it's actually called Toy Day, and there's things like that. It's not you don't get I don't know, Michaelmas or anything. Why did I pick that? Anyway. So yeah, and for you don't get Shrove Tuesday, you get Mardi Gras, which, obviously there is elements of that, but it's very much the sort of party and the peacock element of Mardi Gras rather than the sort of Lenten elements. Yeah. So I have no idea how they would sort of handle a more a more specific and obviously solely religious festival.
I mean, I would attend Zipper T Rabbit's Day of the Dead. Where presumably there would be...
Do you just mean awake for Zipper T Rabbit?
No, I mean brightly coloured skulls hidden in trees, that kind of thing. The other thing that occurred to me is that I have attended many times the summer solstice at Stonehenge, which is a religious observance for many people, and an excuse to drink 3-litre milk things full of cider.
Chris, look!
A golden
Gold balloon.
That's going to contain some kind of
golden recipe
for you. Congratulations.
Thanks.
And I think Zippity Rabbit's Solstice Festival would
golden
actually be
slingshots.
Congratulations. Many congratulations.
Thank you.
But what's the next question on the list as soon as you're done extracting your golden slingshot recipe?
Well,
we're going to talk to Blathers.
Why does it want me to talk to Siri? I don't want to talk to Siri. It's because
you've held the button down.
Anyway, no, I'm not good at iPad. I don't know how to make it be. Why is it taking a photo of my leg? Why am I like this? Chris, how do I be not this?
Just press the button.
But...
There you go.
But no, it's asking about Siri. How do I be not this? Help. Oh, there. Okay, cool. How did that go? Fine. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Ribusbrusin on Twitter asked, Animal Crossing is the name of the village, right? So are all the villages named the same, or does each game take place in a parallel reality? No! Animal Crossing isn't the name of the village. I guess it's like... I'm not sure. It's like the name of the concept. It's like the sort of the idea of a nexus of animals. So
Animal LinkedIn was taken. So
the villages you actually get to name. In previous versions, you named your village. In this one, you name your island. And so there is an individuality there, but there are things that make it a bit odd in that there are duplicate villagers that you can find, and then they act as if they don't know you, and you're like, but Hamlet, you also live in my town, or what are you talking about? We don't know each other, or, you know.
Yeah, how dare you? It's like finding out that your partner has another family.
Yeah, so that whole thing is like, that can be quite an odd kind of moment. Sorry, I'm just changing from KK to KK Disco.
Oh, I just sent you that, yeah.
Amazing.
We might want to turn it down a little bit if we've got music on in the background for now. Oh, hang on. Hell yeah.
Anyway. So, yes, I don't know if that answers that question, but that is my wisdom on that.
Yeah. But yeah, you have to kind of suspend your disbelief to an extent and understand that there is always an island and there is always a Tom Nook.
Oh, Lord. There is actually a lighthouse on mine.
Yeah, and on mine.
Dr. Ellie on Twitter says, I've seen lots of custom artwork and clothing being made. How fiddly is it, and how freely can you create, and how does sharing and curation work? So after a certain point, you get access to a clothes shop called Abel's, Able Sisters Tailor or whatever. And in that you have a kiosk where you can access like an internet repository of designs if you know the code of the creator or the code of the item. So that's the basic sharing system. If you want to create something to upload to that, then you do it via your little Nook phone. It has an app where you can either create something just on a plain square grid, or you can opt for one of the fancier things that lend themselves specifically to clothing. So like you've got hoodie options and t-shirt options and dress options and things like that. So there's a degree of variety in the types of clothes you can have, and they get you started. There's also, but the designing itself is basically pixel art on a background. And it is really flexible. I find it really flexible, but also I miss the, because I find the touchscreen implementation on the Switch quite sort of, I can't always predict when it's going to let me do stuff. And I also really find myself reaching for the stylus like I would have on my 3DS.
Yeah.
And there isn't one. It's the kickstand. I'm like, wait, what? What am I doing? So I find the act of drawing the initial outline of something quite clunky because I'm having to do it with the analog sticks on the thing. But once you get into the habit of that, I find it quite intuitive, and like you can come up with some really cool designs. If you're struggling to use it though, there's also a thing called, I think it's just AC, what is it? AC Pocket?
It's like a browser version, right?
Yeah, there's essentially, we'll dig out the link and put it in the show notes, but there's basically a website that lets you do that stuff either in browser, or you can import a picture that you want to use and it will convert it to the nearest equivalent of the colour palette and stuff, and then it'll give you a code that you can use in game to import that stuff from that tool. So that's another workaround that you can use. But I've been finding it really cool to keep an eye on, just like, I think it's just ACNH Designs is the hashtag on Twitter, and be able to just pick out things in my feed that, as a result, that have just been really cool, and add them to my library of stuff that I can play around with. So yeah, and I also designed, I think I put the links to them on my own Twitter, but I made I do a cartoon character of a hummingbird, and I made a hoodie with that character on, which is, it's just really nice to see my little villagers wandering around wearing it sometimes.
Wearing your merch.
Yeah, and I made one of just a goose on a blue background, which is kind of nice as well. So yeah, have you played around with it much?
Apart from I haven't played around with it much. I've used the design system to make like my flag and things, and I made that dressing gown that we talked about on the previous edition of this.
You made a bedspread as well.
I did make a bedspread based on the same pattern, but that was only because I didn't like any of the default ones. So I haven't really touched it much. I've been enjoying, like, I tend to wear a different outfit every day, but I haven't been investing the time into like drawing a different outfit every day. I'm not going to do that really. Today I'm dressed in a very, very basic way.
Tell me what you're wearing right now.
I'm wearing a kind of poncho-style cardigan.
Okay.
A pair of brown bell-bottoms, some sort of lace-up gardener's boots, and a big floppy hat.
Can you show me this? I want to... Oh, yeah, no, you are not wrong.
Yeah, and I'd like to say that it has a kind of, kind of gentle, kind of, I don't know, Somerset houseboat, smoking a bifter kind of vibe. But actually, I just look like I'm going to Coachella.
I've been really enjoying your Animal Crossing fashion. You're actually a lot more expressive with it than I am, I think. Or rather, mine are a lot more costumey, and yours are a lot more like actual curated. Serve looks.
let's not beat around the bush here.
But so you're in a poncho and a hat, and you've actually put together a look, and I am the Phantom of the Egg event, and so I have a masquerade kind of mask on the top half of my face, and then my hat is one of the event egg hats, which is essentially just a broken egg top that you might get on a if you chop the top off a boiled egg, but blue and painted. And then my body is like a little green egg body. I'm wearing an egg backpack, and I'm wearing pink egg shoes. So my whole look is very much a single issue outfit. And
there is only egg.
Yeah, and elsewhere I do find myself just gravitating far more towards costumes, I think. I spent a long time barefoot in a kind of Cinderella type scrappy dress, the sort of the pre-ball Cinderella outfit and things like that. I go a lot more, here's a character rather than here's
here's a look.
Pip in a look.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I do dress like a wizard, so let's, I'm not immune to that side of it.
Next question from Kolnusasuba. Yes, I'm not good at this. At Metroid. Yes, let's go with that instead. How do both of you decide when you're done playing Animal Crossing for the day? It seems like there's somehow simultaneously a plethora of stopping points and yet none at all. How do you decide, Chris?
I kind of, it depends, like, what I'm in the mood for. Like, I think if there's, like, a particular thing on, like a fishing event or bug catching or something like that, then I'm capable of putting quite a bit of time in. But I also have a sense for when I've kind of hoovered up the resources that are meaningful to me in a given day. So normally I will try and go and bash all the rocks and at the very least find the money rock, the rock that once a day contains money, and harvest any fruit that happen to have grown because they sell well. But I only and maybe comb the beach, look for recipes in bottles or shells to sell. But I'm not particularly I don't and I don't really worry about missing anything, so I don't feel the need to kind of obsessively catch all the fish straight away or anything like that. And I don't tend to go harvest, because all of the kind of resource nodes that you can continually use are things like trees and stuff, and going to other islands to find crafting resources. I've got so much now stashed away that I just go looking for different types of wood or something when I run out.
Well, and also, I mean, have you found that you're less bothered about harvesting fruit now that you've got your turnip money source?
I still like to bring that in, but only because I find shaking the trees quite therapeutic. So yeah, whereas I sort of... I think I'm kind of invested in anything that doesn't mean having to tap through a menu.
Right.
So I kind of like running around shaking the trees, whereas things like, the fishing and stuff, which I enjoy, I kind of want to settle into because you do a lot of clicking through menus and stuff. It's one of the reasons for all the bridges. I don't really have to get my vault pole out.
Right, yeah.
And so, yeah, so normally, I've played it every day since it's come out, but, it's a little ritual. I go and buy 2 copies of whatever KK album is on sale, because I have one for the wall and one for the jukebox. And then I check the shops and usually buy a bunch of stuff, buy new outfit bits from the clothes shop, gather up any kind of easy to grasp and sort of profitable materials, do a quick scan for fossils, and then I'm done. And so some days it can just be 20 minutes while I'm, waiting for the kettle to boil.
Yeah.
And then other days there's more. How about you? Obviously, well, I mean, the question would be, when do you stop?
I guess I was thinking about this, and my answer is basically, well, sometimes I fall asleep.
Yeah.
I think if I'm honest, it's part of the fact that this has always been, or Animal Crossing iterations have always been a good go-to anxiety game for me, and right now, this whole universe that we're in right now is a lot. And so I think being inside a game which is welcoming and that has always felt safe, actually, and that now has the option to sort of interact with friends as much or as little as I want to or am able to at a given time, it's very tempting to stay within. And I think is broadly healthy in terms of, it's not like Twitter where there are a lot of those feelings of connection, but also you might end up in a news sort of awful rabbit hole. This is very much no, there's only one rabbit and I've decided that whole thing is fine. So it's okay, cool. So I think if the world was a bit less much right now, I would have less time in the game and I might have a better answer for that. But yeah, and also I think right now there's a lot going on in terms of there's a cherry blossom event that I don't have all the recipes for, and I'm still missing one of the egg event recipes, and so I could just hang out and try and get those if I'm looking for a reason to be in the place. So yeah. Vicky Malcolm asks, when will I ever see a shooting star? And
I've never seen one either.
have you not?
No.
Have you ever had Celeste visiting?
Yes.
Okay, so Celeste is the younger sister of Blathers, who runs the museum, and Celeste is super into astronomy, and I love Celeste. But when Celeste is in town, it generally means that night there will be a meteor shower. I can't remember the timings of it, but basically if you're wandering around at night, I would assume it's probably maybe the later end, so maybe like 9 o'clock or later or something. Then there will be little flurries of shooting stars in the sky, and if you want to make a wish on them, you just make sure that you don't have any tools in your hand, and you press A, and that makes a little animation where your character does a little wish. I won't tell you why, because that
you might as well discover it because it's cool
to discover, but I think that might be something that isn't clear as to when you might see those things. So I hope that's not a spoiler, but and the other thing to know about them is if you think that there should be some that evening and you're wandering around, make sure the sound's on, because they actually make a kind of tinkling sound that's quite distinctive, even if you're not looking up at the sky. And so, that's a cue to either look up by messing with the right analog stick, or you can also just press A if you are, wandering around without any tools in your hands, and your character will still make that wish. So yeah, those are some tips if you were looking for them. But if it was just a sort of a kind of mournful question, then I hope soon, and let me know. I'm rooting for you. Zoe P has said, what is your favourite part of the museum as it gets more populated? I can't get over the dinosaur area as a 90s kid who dreamed of being a paleontologist. Blathers will only get his triceratops when I've got one for my garden, though. I love that. So the museum area is divided into the bug zone, which is actually it's interesting because every single time the game uses the word bug, there's that part of me that's a pedant that's like, well, actually, the definition of a bug is more narrow than you're using it, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, it sounded like Blathers.
Exactly. And then, so there's the bug area, and then there's the aquarium, and then downstairs in between the two, there is the museum of fossils and so forth. So do you have a favourite of those three sections? I
think I'm quite a big fan of the dinosaur area as well. I think it would go dinosaur, aquarium, bug zone for me. The thing that I find the most surprising about the dinosaur area is the quite detailed statue diorama showing the destruction of the dinosaurs at the hand of a meteorite, which I think is quite intense for Animal Crossing.
Yeah, it's interesting because that model has some great textures as well. You can really zoom in on that meteorite diorama.
Glowing at the point of impact.
Yeah. So I really like that, and how they've also used particular vantage points. If you stand on a particular spot on the floor, the camera changes so you can see the whole of one of the bigger dinosaurs. Yeah. So technically, and in terms of the actual items, I really like the museum, but the dinosaur area. But I adore the aquarium.
Yeah, it's not a surprise.
Much. And when I got the anchovies, and when you give them to Blathers, I guess skip forward for a minute if you don't want aquarium spoilers. But because nowadays the animals aren't limited to just being one thing, one exhibit each in a zone, you get a whole bait ball of anchovies, and it just sort of swims in this amazing kind of hypnotic way. And I've spent a long time just standing in front of that one tank watching them.
125 hours.
Well, and there's also one horse mackerel in that tank, and so it just sort of swims around like, oh, these guys, interesting. So yeah, that's my thing. But the butterfly area in the bug zone is really cool as well, and it's also in the northern hemisphere. It's dragonfly season, so there have started to be those in that area, and there's just so many cool things. So so far those are a few favourites, but the smaller tanks in the bug area getting filled out is awesome. Like, I've got one with my ants in now, thanks to those rotten turnips, and that's pretty great. There's so many good bits. Nico Valone has said, not a question, but it'd be neat to talk about the gargantuan effort of localization that goes into making Animal Crossing the international and intercultural hit that it is. And they've actually linked to a paragraph from something about how the localization team managed to translate some of the puns around the turnip market and the stonk exchange and the Sal Jones kind of whole element of it, because of the sow who sells turnips historically. So something I would say is I'd like to dig more into that, but I don't have the expertise. So I think, shall we just link to
it's a good post.
To the thing in the show notes, and then if anyone else has expertise or sees any interviews on that kind of stuff, definitely send them our way, because I find that stuff really interesting, because it must be such a task, especially given the amount of puns in the game.
Yeah.
Cool. From Discord, Bizarrity K says, would love to hear in what ways the two of you have gone for different island or house vibes. We've covered that in
as far as the islands go, we talk about houses
and the clothes and stuff, but we haven't really talked about our houses, have we? So what's yours like?
So as I have expressed before, I think I said this in the previous one, my way into Animal Crossing was really discovering KK Slider, the most talented multi-instrumentalist I think maybe in the history of pop.
Chris runs KK Slider's official fan account.
Yeah, well, So, I've technically got a 2-room house, rapidly becoming a 3-room house at the moment, but it's kind of, it is kind of a 1-room house, because I've got one room with some nice Art Deco flooring, arty crimson wallpaper, little kitchen area, wardrobe, all the furniture is white, a writing desk with a typewriter, because I am living my bell end fantasy. And a wall, 2 walls almost now, that are completely covered in KK Slider album covers.
I think last time I went to see you, there was a certain amount of sort of louche 70s magazine,
I do have that as well. I've got a Go set, as in the game,
right,
that's on a white rug in the centre of the room, where you presumably sit on the floor to play. And then the back room is Egg Hell.
I see,
back room, I've just decided to put all of the egg things in there. It was also where I was keeping my turnips until recently. And I think to add the kind of slightly dystopian nature of it, I just put a buzzing extractor fan just quite high up in the corner of the room, which is something I find personally quite unsettling, because I grew up in a very, very hot attic bedroom. Nice. It just makes me think of having a migraine.
Oh, wow.
That's good.
Great.
So that's my house. How's yours?
So my main space has gradually morphed from being kind of arty things and fish and plants into being fish and plants and more insect things. So I've sort of basically culled the art and just put up more insect stuff. Right. So I've got a grasshopper head on the wall, and I've got a mantis head on the wall, and I've got a model of a locust, and I've got...
Quite creepy, the heads on the wall.
I mean, there's a certain amount of creepiness, but I've decided that it's because they've just poked their head through a hole in the wall to have a look around. So I'm it's
good, actually.
Much trying to convince myself that that's all okay. It's a work in progress, and then every time I go through to the back room, it shows slightly more of the top part of the back wall than you can usually see of that main room. And I always remember that I've put a security camera in there by accident, and I keep thinking, I should probably take that down. but then as soon as I'm in a different room, I forget about it, so it stays. The back room is kind of jungle and swamp themed, so there's just a jungle and swamp themed wall and floor with a bunk bed and a pair wardrobe and so forth, because obviously. And then off to the side there's the egg room with the flayed anatomical model and shower scenario, which I think maybe I'll just
sell to the Tate.
Leave as it is. Yes. Yeah. It's a joy. I always know where people are in my house by when they go, oh.
That's how it's like in real life when people find my Warhammer.
Who else have we got? So, Paul Scott Canavan has asked... Hi, Paul. Has asked, I want to hear about how your island theme tunes and flags are, all the fun personalisation. What did you go for yours?
So my flag is a pigeon.
Okay.
A stately pixel art pigeon on a kind of frilly background with some stars that I drew.
Oh, sorry, Frita's meeping and mooping in her town centre. Look, listen.
That's very good.
She's so good. I love her so
hang on, I'll just
much.
If you turn your volume down, I'll turn mine up, and
Okay.
I'll play my island tune, and you could actually even get ready to do the same thing.
Yeah.
So my island tune is this, which might not come across. Let's see how this sounds. Which some people will hopefully recognise as the soundtrack Rise Up Dead Man from Hunt Showdown.
I see.
Which is a game about bad cowboys murdering each other in a bayou. Wow. And if I press done, then Isabel will sing it.
Oh.
Oh, hang on. There she is.
She's so good. Okay.
She's now berating me for not changing it.
So mine is, and has been for a long time actually in the franchise. Well, I'm going to let people try and guess. So I'm just going to play it. Oh, how do I play it? So you've got 10 more seconds to guess, and then I will explain. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. What? You're acting as if this isn't great
This is
radio,
the longest 10
Chris.
seconds of my life.
Anyway, it's In the Navy by the Village People. And so that is my whole thing. Isabel is, I'm not going to make her sing it, but it is adorable. And my town flag is a version of that hummingbird character that I do, just because that felt really like...
Apropos.
Yeah, my whole island vibe. So yeah, that's where we've gone in those directions. Although it does mean that I spend a lot of time just humming In the Navy because
that was true anyway.
Plays a lot in the town. Matron Boy has said, I would like to hear about what hasn't worked or what's gone wrong grand design style. Chris?
Because, as I say, I tend to operate this sort of creative method which involves letting things be extremely bad or uncooked or messy or unresolved, and then sort of pulling a cord that tightens it all up and turns it into a state from which it will never change for good or ill. I haven't really had any disasters. I will say I did want to build I'm building like a promenade, and I wanted to put some iron fencing down the length of it to act as a kind of like a safety rail. So you have, little steps down to the beach, kind of like where I grew up. And so, but unfortunately it won't let you put fencing right on the edge of an incline, only a full square back from it, which doesn't feel right. So, that plan was a total bust, and now my lighthouse cliff zone is completely unsafe. But no one's died, obviously, because no one can die in Animal Crossing, because it's a place where nothing hurts.
Nice.
But yeah, other than that, no real disasters. How about you?
Let me think. I've had things where designs I've had to cancel, the custom design tool, I've just quit out of it in a rage because I couldn't manipulate it into the thing that I was trying to do. That's been a sort of a low level thing where it's just, I'm not good enough at pixel art to do some of the things that I wanted to do. In terms of the actual, bigger island projects, I think, there's a few things where I'm annoyed with how the game itself has gated progress. There's a part where very early on you have to build a bridge. I didn't want a bridge. I didn't want any bridges. I liked the vaulting, and I liked that the animals were basically trapped where I started because they didn't seem to know how to vault. But it made me do a bridge, so I put it in the most out-of-the-way place possible that you can't even get to without a ladder and a vaulting pole. But just the fact that I can't get rid of it is annoying to me.
Yeah.
And also the same thing with the campsite. I've put that on the beach, but then it's really annoying because an animal that I didn't want in my town, because I can't remember why, but I think I was annoyed with them in Pocket Camp for something. Or I liked
They wronged
them.
you in a different dimension.
I think I had them in my Pocket Camp because they offered the right type of resource that I needed to build a golden bed or something. But after a while it just made me so annoyed that I had to have them around, that to get them as my first visitor, that the game was hellbent on making me keep them or invite them to stay, just felt really annoying. So I then wouldn't invite them to stay, but that meant that they just camp indefinitely. So it's been 3 days, Hippo is still on my beach, and I thought, do you know what, I'm going to try something. And so I am relocating the entire campsite to a completely different area of the island, decimating at least 2 trees that I'm not happy about, just so hopefully Hippo won't move with it. So Hippo will hopefully be kind of displaced by this activity. And it sounds so horrific. All of the words that are associated with this project sound awful. And I will say, in my defense, Hippo is incredibly privileged, and Hippo wears a blazer, for goodness sake. So I'm feeling like Hippo has resources to fall back on. This is not a Hippo that needs me to help them out with a house. But yeah, so tomorrow I'm going to find out if that approach has worked or whether Hippo is just infesting another area of my island.
So I said I've almost not had any disasters, but I just talked to Filbert, who is an excellent blue squirrel who taught me how to cry.
Oh.
And he says he's thinking about leaving.
What?
So I've just told him not to.
Oh wow. Yeah, Filbert's great. What have you done?
I don't know. I've been talking to him every day.
Well, maybe it's just not good enough.
Look, Filbert's... I love him, but he is kind of thick, so...
Wow! Okay!
Look, he told me he was really excited about KK Slider coming round, and then he was like, but we're going to have to make a special area for everyone to feel safe in, and where they can hang out if they get tired during the gig. And then he gave me a trash can. Right, yeah. So, I mean, God bless him, but I don't know if he's a great decision maker, Anyway. Cawthor just made an interesting observation, which was, does anyone else find the unpausable real-time plus infinite list of jobs to be done today really stressful? I was really struggling until the rabbit turned up and ruined everything, at which point I couldn't really do jobs anymore, and it was a massive relief. And I think I just wanted to sort of acknowledge that I think it's not the way I play, but I do think that some people find... there's this sense of an everyday list of tasks, like you were saying earlier, the kind of gather the fruit, check the shops, do the circuit of chatting to villagers, there can sometimes be that kind of, have I collected all the things, have I done my task? And I think actually maybe that's another use of these events that are kind of overwhelming. I kind of wonder whether some elements of it are
they conflict with our sense of, I would like to be a completionist and have all of the recipes and be kind of independently able to produce all of these items myself. Whereas maybe the way that Nintendo are trying to push you into playing is, well, lean on other people in a community for resources, but it's weird shifting out of that mindset that you need for other games to then suddenly be
and
like...
you need life.
But like, you know, I feel really, but I don't have the recipe for this particular type of floor, and what if the event ends without me having had that? So I'm getting that sense of, oh no, there is a to-do list, but just on a slightly bigger scale. Like on the day-to-day tasks, I'm fine, but on the, you know, like you saw me crafting bait furiously so I could get a stringfish before that thing went out of season. So
yeah, I think you've got to. I think this is a lesson we're all learning in life at the moment. It is time to try and move away from the devil of productivity to some extent, and judge yourself solely on that basis, which is why I'm wearing a big hat and trying to catch a fish. I think self-set goals are the key, and knowing that it isn't a survival game, there is no scarcity really. Everything will come around again if you miss it now. People will have different things in stock at different times, and if you miss it, it's not gone, and there will always be more game to play, so don't worry about it. But that's a hard lesson to internalize when everything in the world points you in a different direction.
I think I'm also finding that...
Oh, a sky egg.
I think I'm also finding that I don't quite trust in the sense that this event will come round again in the way that I did with the other versions of the franchise, just because this one is a lot more... It's more online than the previous versions, and also it exists in a world of seasonal events and games as service.
Yeah.
And
the world
Pocket Camp is also sort of part of its history now. And so part of me is like, oh, maybe I shouldn't stress as much. Maybe this particular cherry blossom thing will come around next year. But part of me is like, but what if Nintendo's like, oh, well, everyone's already got that stuff from last year, so we need to switch it up a bit, so it'll be variant items. So, like, there's part of me that's a little bit more anxious of that. So I think I'd be curious if anyone who is also a long-running player of the series is having something similar. Like, yeah. The last thing that we were going to do is have a look at some of your villages. So we
grand designs.
I believe we've got 3 candidates this time. So we will, I guess, spend a little bit of time just looking at each, maybe a couple of minutes.
Yeah, sure.
Cool. Shall I stop my thing?
Yeah.
Because Frita is singing and I find her so adorable, it's distracting. Okay, so... First up, we've got Zed Fang, who describes theirs as Terror, a bucolic resort island with a secret, darker side. So, the first image, oh, that's cute, is outside the museum. There's like a sort of fruity, flowery plaza with the 2D standees of Triceratopses, which is
that's really nice.
So cute. I
like
really
the globe on a plinth, which has slightly sort of Deus Exian vibes.
Oh yeah, and the floor lights. Yeah, the uplighting.
That's good. I like that.
And there's also like an umbrella exhibit, which is excellent, and one of the crocodile villagers, which...
It's got something sort of slightly ritually about it. Actually, I know what it has a sort of processional element, like these are the umbrellas claimed from fallen foes or something.
Wow.
I don't know, it's a triumphal
like a trophy
kind of walk.
kind of area.
Yeah, there's a good piece of John Blanche art of the process way to the Emperor's Throne on Terra in Warhammer 40,000 that reminds me of.
Oh wow, yeah. There's also a villager's house where with some oil barrels outside. It seems to be overlooking a beach. It's sort of on a cliff top, and there's a grave with some flowers on it. So
and some barbed wire as well. This one looks like the promotional photo for a like a true crime podcast. Yeah, like
There's also a sort of a gilded Aries themed ram. I believe it might be the rocking horse exhibit. So there's a sort of it's a tonal shift.
Yeah,
I would
this
say.
it's an episode of This American Life, I think.
Yes. And the last of these 4 screenshots is so there's the flayed kind of, or the half anatomical model that I have in my bathroom.
A much larger skeleton.
Yeah, a skeleton. Yeah, the larger skeleton. A kind of wrestling figure.
It's a tiny little luchador.
Yeah, but in a pentagram surrounded by votive candles. There's another luchador just sort of off to the right, and a raccoon who seems to be their kind of their manager, or their kind of like their hype crew.
Yeah.
And the character,
there's a bamboo
the main
bed.
character is wielding an axe with a hood on. So I'm going to go with this being the culmination of the story that was gradually unfolding.
I think so. I mean, what we've got here is 2 different instances of luchadors, and so obviously some kind of meaning has been encoded there in a kind of like a sigil fashion, and what we're about to see is the destruction of the sigil in order to kind of embed its meaning into the fabric of the world.
I see. And the tatami bed kind of mirrors the grave.
Yeah. Well, it's the ideal place to meditate or indeed engage in other things that might prepare the body for this kind of transition.
So that's
good.
Terra, an Island by Zed Fang.
Excellent.
So that was excellent.
You've closed it there.
No, but I have to go back to the document where the other link is. Okay. So, Team Boring, my town is Temperance. It's a little messy, but has some good neighbours and some nice picnic spots. So, let's see. We have...
First, wow.
Excellent.
So, shall I describe this one? So we have a gnome that stood on a cardboard box in front of a cherry blossom tree, backlit in light green by some floor lighting, and a concerned looking man with a side parting and a plaster across his nose who appears to be indicating the gnome and looking into the camera as if to say to a watching police officer, yes, this is the one. This is the one that attacked me.
I should get you to describe more of them.
In this one, we have the same villager still wounded and with a kind of faraway wounded look in his eyes, standing in the town plaza with an exhausted looking squirrel who's done with the exercise, and a nearby turkey, I'm going to guess, who is very, very smug about their yoga prowess. Nearby, there is a lot of fossils all lined up but unidentified near a hose pipe, presumably because still waiting for blathers. It's got the feeling of, I think the caption here is Big Sunday energy, but I'd go a little bit further than that, and I think these people are all coming down.
Okay. The next one, there's
Okay, wow. So in this one, we have an interior environment which has sort of pixel art wallpaper that makes it look like the inside of a. Is it supposed to be a wrestling ring or something like that?
I think it's like a crowd.
Yeah, a crowd is cheering as if we're in Streets of Rage or something. It's darkly lit. Everyone is wearing, there are 3 characters present. Everyone's wearing masks, as in like surgical masks. There's one person is lying, eyes wide open in shock on a gurney, while 2 other people express happiness around them.
I think one of them's concerned. There's joy, and then there's like the slightly sweaty kind of worry.
Yeah, and then there's just like a desk with some drawing supplies, a Nintendo Switch. This feels like
on a turnip.
And a single turnip. Yeah, this has got a kind of week 6 of enforced cohabitation kind of vibe, where the outside world and the idea of other people is simply like a wallpaper draped over the fundamental isolation of these 3 figures.
See, I was getting more of a sort of, old-fashioned surgery where people would conduct operations with a group of medical students sort of leaning over the sides and watching, like a kind of, spectator sports surgery thing. So, and the final of those 4 screenshots? In the final of these 4 screenshots, it's a beach scene, moonlight, midnight,
two plump coconut trees laden with fruit overhanging a hammock campsite in a beach blanket on which lies our protagonist, still wounded, but now for having found something kind of peace, something resembling peace. Nearby, a penguin in a monogrammed sports jacket looks at the camera like it owes him money.
Nice. Excellent. So that was Temperance by Team Boring. And then I believe our final island is by Chris Allen, a little photo tour of Ragnarok. I see what you've done there. I am the Eggman was the final part of that sentence. So let's have a little look. We've got an aerial photo of... It says hi in lilies, in pink lilies, surrounded by the black lilies that are actually sort of very deep burgundy.
And our lead here is wearing a bunny suit, a pink bunny suit, and looking up at the overhead camera as if to say, "What?
You what?" Then we've got another appearance.
This is very nice.
Outfit.
I like this. Yeah, same bunny
well composed.
Well composed. A nice, well-tiled plaza with a fountain and a red British phone box outside the Able Sisters store. Our protagonist now looks to the blue, open blue sky, where in the distance a gift balloon that for once doesn't contain a sky egg is floating past.
That you know of.
Well, it doesn't. Because it doesn't have the right balloon.
Well, they might start infiltrating.
God help us if they do. Oh, it's very pleasant. We've got a kind of extremely, a very bougie brunch location, exactly the sort of place most hard hit by this present disaster, honestly. It's completely empty in this case, as it would need to be. And the protagonist wearing aviator sunglasses and a bunny outfit, presumably the owner of this establishment, looks up to the camera plaintively as if looking to the government for aid.
I will say I've seen some of these kinds of islands where people have gone a lot more into the idea of a town, you know, with the pathways and these little sections where you can go in and experience a specific snippet of town life, whether that's an outdoor cafe or like a pizza parlour as we have here, or...
Oh, you're all right, it is a pizza parlour. Yeah.
But like,
still, all my observations otherwise apply.
Yeah, but it's very different from the vibe that I'm going for. So I love visiting those towns because they feel super kind of...
I like these tables a great deal.
Yeah. I believe Chris Allen actually... there's one more in this batch.
In this set.
Yeah.
So this is a nice little neighbourhood scene. We've got some lovely fencing. This maybe shows... I guess a sort of more advanced version of this particular society where the houses are all arranged in a line rather than wherever the fuck you decided to put them.
Oh yeah, my island is...
It's very impressive. It's honestly a degree of coordination and forward planning
There's some
that I
environmental...
only wish I was capable of.
There's some environmental storytelling as well. There's like a gas pump, and on the other side of a house there is a
space rocket.
A space rocket. So I'm assuming that one fuels the other. So
yeah, or it's a diorama showing our transition from fossil fuels to doomed space mission.
Now, Chris Allen has also added in some house images. We won't go through them as exhaustively, but there are some really lovely touches with like a little a board games room.
Nice, I like that.
Got some light cherry blossom theming. It's a very peaceful space. There's a kind of map room with a pet turtle.
This looks like a room that someone would do backroom business from while operating a nightclub with
that's
their tortoise.
True.
They feed people to the tortoise.
It's you'd find it in a lunchtime murder mystery, I think.
Yeah.
And then finally, we
Egg
have
hell.
the egg room.
Yeah, I'm glad that more people have egg hells because, oh boy, are we all living through it. And this is a fine example of the genre. It's what you'd expect. It's egg hell.
Basically, they've used all of the egg items to decorate one smaller space, and I am into it. So, yeah.
Would that we could be out of it?
But if you would like to join in with these little visits to other people's islands that we're trying to do, then please do send up to 4 screenshots and just the name of your island into what's our email?
You can send them to questions@crateandcrowbar.com if you like.
Yeah, or just tag us in the
Just send
in
them
a
to
tweet.
Pip on Twitter. That's probably the best way of doing this.
Yeah, but and also if you have any questions, all of those routes of inquiry apply. But I don't think I have.
We'll probably put a shout out for questions before we record another one of these, I suspect, rather than. But we can gather them up over time as well. Yeah,
especially if there's another event or if our towns change markedly, so forth. Yeah. But yes, thank you so much for joining us. We hope you have enjoyed this latest instalment of Animal Crossing fun. Do you want to add anything extra? Do you want your deets out there?
I don't really have any deets to share.
Unless, and to be fair, you're not interested unless there's turnips involved.
If your Timmy or your Tommy are buying for 600 plus, hit me up.
And I believe that concludes our business. So thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Every bunny.
Oh no.